Strategic media and public relations is bringing together dynamic companies, investors, and consumers like no one before. And we're doing it in a unique way while addressing the big changes underway in our world. Our world is fraught with both peril and opportunity. The world is changing. Long-term conflicts are shaping up over commodities, currencies, and influence. Political lines are shifting. Yet mankind moves on to meet the needs of a growing world. Newer, cleaner energy, medical breakthroughs, ways to better our lives, better ways to move into the future. Join us now for today's topic.
Welcome, folks. Chris Temple here with Strategic Media, and we've got our returning great friend, James Anderson, the CEO of Guanajuato Silver, who this time around is actually in Mexico at the Valenciana complex. Welcome, James.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks very much for having me again.
Yeah, we want to give a quick update to folks about what's been going on operation-wise, finance-wise, markets and whatnot since we last spoke with James and had a much larger profile of Guanajuato a couple months ago. Before we do that, quick, the obligatory slides on the screen here. James and or myself might be making some forward-looking statements. We want to let you know about that. And also keep in mind that the Strategic Media is compensated by Guanajuato Silver to get information on the company out, video interviews like these and other press releases and whatnot as part of our normal course of activity. Now, James, when we visited last time by video, anyway, a couple of months ago, and for those who have not watched this yet, make sure you go to our page and watch this to give you a good background on all the different moving parts of the company, how James pretty much out of nothing built a really attractive looming mid-tier silver producer with some gold production as well down in Mexico. Great job getting a lot of assets at great prices and building a nice company out of it, which employs, tell us again how many total employees you have?
It's about 1,300 people working for us in Mexico.
That is pretty neat. Now, since then, we want to give a couple of updates as far as what's been going on with the company in 2024. One of the things that you had a game plan to do when we spoke last was to augment your own production as a company with some ore from the mines in the surrounding area, small mines that either didn't have any place to process it or didn't have a good deal or whatever. And not once, but twice now in the recent past, you've announced this. It's helped to boost your production numbers in the recent past. Tell us what led to those two deals, James.
Yeah, so one of the plants, over the last few years, thanks for the very kind words too, Chris. That, over the last few years, we've built a company that has 3 production facilities and 4 mines. 2 of the production facilities are in and near the city of Guanajuato, where I am right now. So the bigger of those 2 production facilities, which was the first one that we bought, is called El Cubo. And we bought that from Endeavor Silver. And I think it's fair to say that Endeavor built that plant too big for the mines that are associated with the plant at El Cubo. And over the last couple of years, we've done a couple of different things to try and fill that plant to capacity. And the agreements that you talk about are really in response to that. Whenever you have a mining plant that's not quite at capacity, well, there are missed opportunities in terms of costs that you can augment with added material through there. So there's a big international miner that has assets in the area, but no real production facilities operating right now. So it took some time to negotiate a deal with them, but we are actively putting material through the plant from them on really a profit sharing agreement, Chris. So we acknowledge all of the costs that go into transport, production, sales of the concentrate, and then what's left over we split 50-50. And I think that's a really good partnership. We've taken that same basic contract and just now announced a very similar agreement with a much smaller local group. It's really an engineering family that owns a number of small, not necessarily small, but old, not operating mines in the Guanajuato area. Remember, it's a 450-year mining camp. So there's all kinds of things that date back decades and sometimes centuries that can be put in production. And then one other thing, and I know it gets a little complicated, but we also have another wholly owned mine called El Horcon with an H at the front of it. It's a little further away from Guanajuato. It's about 65 kilometers to the northwest. It's an old producer, and for the last 4 or 5 months, we've been taking material, old stockpiled material that didn't make grade 100 years ago. It does today, and bringing that material to Guanajuato and processing that. Now, we don't have a partner in that one, so all of the cash flow goes to us. But those are some of the things that we've been working on to fill the plant.
Neat. Now, you mentioned also when we visited last time that because of a couple of operational issues, grade of some of the material and whatnot, that after a really steady climb of increasing production month to month, quarter to quarter, things fell off a bit in the last part of 2023, but they since have rebounded nicely, including or augmented, I guess we should say, by this third-party material that you're starting to run. I know back on the 29th of last month of February, you put out some news about your January production. I think the next time you actually report something, correct me if I'm wrong, will be at the end of the quarter. You're not going to do it month to month, but most likely at the end of the quarter. And things are looking up in that department, aren't they?
Yeah, that's right. And so just a quick comment. No one likes to look in the rearview mirror too much if the things weren't working very well, but a number of different things, mostly in the third quarter of last year at all the mines. When it rains, it pours, and a bunch of different things, including grade, including production, different things. All went into having production decline after, as you say, and you can see this very, very clearly in our corporate presentation, this quarter over quarter growth. So I'm pretty confident that this quarter will rival some of the best quarters that we've had. And so you're going to see this dip in production and then this move back up. And I think people are going to take a lot of confidence in that as we go forward, especially with the now better prices. I'll say one other thing as well. So all of the third-party agreements that we've been talking about, that the last third-party agreement, the second third-party agreement that we've signed, that won't really kick in until April. So we're going to have an additional upswing, I think, in production in silver equivalent ounces in the second quarter as well.
Nice. And you mentioned price. We're going to get to that in just a minute. But first, I want to talk as well about your recently revamped / increased gold loan facility with Ocean Partners, which has been a great partner of yours almost since day one, or pretty darn near going back to there. And for folks that don't realize this, when you're talking about a producing company with a lot of different moving parts, it's not uncommon, as with most goods that are produced in the world, to have upfront financing to operate, and then out of your cash flow, you pay back some of that, and hopefully you've got a profit left. I mean, there's hardly any good on this planet that changes hands paid for up front. Everybody gets a letter of credit. If you get goods shipped from China, they get a letter of credit. They come to the US shores, let's say, to use that example. They end up at your local Walmart or Target or whatever, and they get paid for. The manufacturer in China gets paid, and the vendor financing gets paid. So this is not unlike other industries for people that don't understand that. That said, to give a little bit of an explanation, you increased the gold loan facility to basically to do two things. Number one, to get rid of some near-term debt, and secondly, for some augmented production capacity and whatnot. So walk us through that process, James.
Yeah. Okay. So that's really helpful, Chris, the way that you describe that. And I think people forget sometimes, we've built a fairly big company pretty quickly. We talked about the number of people that are working for us. We might do $80 million in revenue this year, right? Depending on silver and gold prices, right? So near-term cash flow for what really is a startup company, well, that's really important. Ocean Partners buys the majority of our concentrate. So we don't actually make silver and gold. We make a silver and gold concentrate from our mines. We ship that to Manzanillo, which is a port on the west coast of Mexico. Ocean Partners buys that from us and then ships it to different refineries around the world, mostly in the Far East, but some in Europe as well, because the concentrate that we produce here is extremely clean. It's got no, nasties, no deleterious material in it at all. And so even for European refiners, they really like our material, and we get a good price for it. So having them on side to be able to lend us some money and to give us some help in terms of cash flows in that way, that's been really helpful, especially in a marketplace really for the last few years that's been difficult to raise capital in the junior precious metals mining business. So we've been cash constrained as we have gone along. The mines that we bought, the 4 mines and 3 production facilities, we paid pennies on the dollar. We got great prices for them, but they were and continued to be fixer-uppers. We've got a long list of capital expenditures that we want and need to put in place in order to continue that ramp up of production.
Nice. Now, people need to remember, and you've alluded to this already, that the last few years has been pretty poor. Even when metals prices once in a while perk up, it's not really trickled down yet for a variety of different reasons to even the producers, let alone the junior exploration companies, where you've really seen a dearth of financing and a dearth of interest. People have been wringing their hands for a while now that there's never been a bigger disconnect between prices and whatnot. But that said, as we're recording this in mid-March, James, we've seen silver in recent days peak above $25 an ounce. Whether this is the real liftoff for silver to catch up with the record gold prices recently or not remains to be seen. The Federal Reserve may disappoint markets in the near term and not lower interest rates as quickly as people think, which in the end is still going to benefit silver, in my opinion. It's just going to be a delayed reaction. That's a discussion for a different time. But anyway, it's certainly given you a little bit of help recently that you're able to get better cash prices on production and your concentrates.
Yeah, that's right. But let's talk about the disconnect just for a second. So I always look at Barrick Gold, right? So since I was a teenager, looking at Barrick was always for me a proxy for the big gold mining companies. And I look at the prices of the shares in Canadian dollars usually. Well, 18 months ago, their shares touched about $33. Today, with gold at all-time highs, one of the biggest gold producers in the world, their shares are down by 1/3.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, this is a company that pays in gold mining terms a good dividend. They're buying back shares, and yet the market says, yeah, not really interested. So that's difficult. With regards to silver and gold, I would just like to remind your listeners, we're about half and half. We're about 45% gold in terms of revenue, about 45% silver, which is quite high for any silver producer, really, and then about 10% in base metals. So we've got a big gold component as well, and that certainly helps in terms of cash flows. The price of silver is notoriously volatile, and there is a very obvious, from a technical standpoint, there's a very, very obvious sloping line of highs that's been established over the last 3 years. We will break out of that at some point. We're right there right now. So to your point, Chris, we could break out of it right now. And I think that move would measure maybe to $28 or $30, which on a historical basis, and in terms of the silver gold ratio, $30 silver would still look cheap. So yeah. I think we've got ample room, ample potential upside here for the price of silver.
Well, and I'll second your comment on Barrick. I actually just added back for the first time in I don't know how many years Newmont Mining to my recommended list. Of course, Guanajuato Silver is on my recommended list too. At the National Investor, I'll put that other hat on for just a moment. And in fact, while I brought that up, crass commercial message, I've got an imminently appearing special report on precious metals, give you all the fundamentals of it. There'll be a profile of Guanajuato Silver in that as well. So here on the screen, if you want to get on my mailing list for that, let me know. But Newmont, likewise, I just added it back to my list, near a 52-week low as the gold price is hitting a new high. And this is after Newmont announced that they were buying Newcrest, the big Australian gold company, which once upon a time was part of Newmont. They spun it out. Now they brought it back in. They're getting rid of some non-core assets, which for another company would be a company maker. They're getting leaner and meaner, and they're loaded for bear going forward in relative terms, and nobody cares about that either. So one of these days it's going to be like, and I've said this before, and I don't remember if you and I said this on our last conversation, but one by one, I see all of these commodities and the stocks underlying them. They're going to do in the months and few years ahead what has happened to the uranium market in the last couple of years. All of a sudden, the light bulb is going to go off over the market's head. They're going to say, holy cow, there really is a short supply of these things. This asset really is cheap. The companies involved in exploring and mining are cheap. And we've seen just a moonshot for uranium. It's corrected finally as we speak. But I mean, you talk about the uranium price went up more than fivefold from bottom to top in less than about 2 years. And then it's, backed off. I think the high was $105 a pound or something like that. And it's been
what did that do to the uranium company shares?
Well, they went nuts. I mean, the better companies were up. I mean, even a big one like Cameco is up 4 or 5 times. The ones like Energy Fuels, UEC were up 7 or 8 times in price, 10 times, I think, in one case. So, and that's coming with the precious metals as well. And again, for a variety of reasons, that's a discussion for another day. But
let's talk about it just for a second, though, because I often use uranium as a proxy for the silver market. What are the similarities? Well, in terms of sentiment, at the nadir of both markets, sentiment was absolutely terrible, right? Yeah. Even the people who loved silver didn't love it anymore, right? The supply, the production supply deficits in both metals. Right now, silver is going to have maybe its largest supply deficit ever in 2024, and that'll be the 4th year in a row that's like that. So silver is used in all kinds of different industrial capacities. I just don't know where we're going to get all of that silver that we might need, because 75% of silver comes from byproduct mines. So you're not going to put a base metal mine into production just to get byproduct silver out of it. So therefore, silver can easily run to that number that I said earlier, $28, $30, $32 before there's any demand reaction, supply reaction in the marketplace.
And that's still way off its all-time high, because silver twice in the last decade plus has been $50. In sympathy with a concurrent gold price high at those times. This time around is when it's been different, that a gold price high has not yet translated into silver, but I'm quite convinced that's coming myself. Last but not least, James, anything else as far as on the front in Mexico with the political situation? There's a looming election down there that is unlikely to affect your business directly, but it's I know fodder for some discussion.
Well, yeah, a couple of different things. I know some of your listeners, Chris, will have been watching and listening and probably somewhat worried about a new mining law that was presented by the AMLO government last year, maybe 18 months ago. It had numerous different court challenges within Mexico. And just recently, one of those court challenges has basically thrown that law out and sent it back to the government and said, hey, this is unworkable, reconstruct that, please. So I think that's positive, and I think it reinforces the truth that within Mexico, it is a country of laws, as is the United States, and when a law is presented, it can have numerous court challenges to it. Guanajuato Silver enjoined an amparo, which is sort of somewhere halfway between an injunction and an appeal. So we were part of that legal process to have the law basically turned away. So I think that's helpful. The new election, which will happen in June, I believe, that will, you're only allowed one term as president in Mexico. So AMLO will be leaving office. There's a couple of different possibilities. Both are females, and in both instances, I think they will be generally better for the mining industry. Even Ms. Scheinbaum, who's running with the Moreno party, which is AMLO's party, and I think she'll be generally more favorable to the mining industry. So I think all of that's good. With regards to the peso remains very, very strong. That's not good for our business. We make silver and gold, we sell it, we get US dollars, but a lot of our costs, well, 75% of our costs are denominated in pesos. But I suspect that the strong run in the peso, currencies run for a long, long time. And then when they change direction, they go in the other direction for a long, long time as well. So I'm anticipating a change in direction here at some point.
Well, I think you're right. And I've heard, among other things, that both of the ladies that are running for president have made various promises that are going to require more public spending and whatnot. And on top of that, I don't think that the currency markets have yet reckoned with the full cost of that horrific hurricane that hit the west coast of the country a while back, and that I think has been ignored. So yeah, I tend to agree that the peso is probably peaking. I think going forward, it's going to be more important too, though, to see the metals prices continue to do well. And again, even if we get a hiccup in the near term after a nice rally for silver and continuing all-time highs for gold, there's no question in my mind, at least, where we're going to be a year or two from now. A month or two from now might be a different story, but we're heading in the right direction. So James, hey, I appreciate the update. We'll make sure that folks keep up with things at Guanajuato, and I would suspect that after you put out your first quarter numbers and results and whatnot, we're going to do this again and give people yet another update. So I'll look forward to that.
Me too. Thanks very much for your time, Chris. Appreciate it.
Take care.
We hope you got a lot out of today's subject. Make sure you avail yourself of the resources and contacts offered today. Subscribe to this channel for future topics and opportunities. And if you have any questions, drop us a line. Thanks for tuning in.